one of the two radio voices of Atlanta United and brand manager of 92.9 The Game, and someone who is very busy this time of year due to the local basketball team in the playoffs for the first time in when was the last time they were in the playoffs? A couple of years ago, right?
Last year.
They were actually there last year.
Last year, that's right.
It doesn't feel like it. They weren't there long, but they were there.
Yeah. But yeah, good to have you, Mike. I know
Thanks.
this is busy season for you, but thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join us.
No, it's my pleasure, Sydney. It's good to see you guys. You guys are doing a great job, and I was enjoying your discussion while I was, I guess, in the virtual green room. And it's funny, Quentin Westberg kind of always intimidated me from a physical standpoint as well. Do you know that might be the nicest guy on the team? Yeah. Seriously, like the nicest guy on the team. When we fly with the team and we gather at the charter terminal, most of the guys are kind of like, don't make eye contact, stay away, all that. Quentin's one of the first guys to come up to Jason and I and shake our hand and ask how we're doing. Really, really good guy, and kind of lousy circumstances that have afforded him this opportunity. But I think he's up for it. I think he's ready, and I'm pulling for him. I sure as heck am. And I think Clement Diop is going to be heard from during this stretch as well, because you have a lot of match compression coming up. I would suspect Diop is probably going to get a run against maybe Memphis 901, maybe against Colorado in these midweek matches coming up in May. But I've been enjoying your conversation. I enjoy your podcast. I enjoy interacting with you guys on Twitter. And I'm very grateful that you're having me on tonight. Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it immensely.
Mike, did you have fun last night?
I did. It's funny. You do 82 games and you kind of start crawling to the finish line a little bit. And I will admit that I was not really optimistic about last night's game going into it, considering the Hawks had lost 7 in a row in Miami and thought the Hawks kind of limped into that play-in game Tuesday night. By the end of the night, man, I was excited. I mean, you probably noticed I'm tweeting, I'm going back and forth with people. I do the road games from home here in my home office. So like Clark and Cleo, my dogs, they're here right now. Like they're all fired up and they're seeing me get all excited and everything. So kind of re-energized me a little bit. And then I saw the freaking playoff schedule and I can't do Saturday's game because I'm going to be in Toronto, and I can't do game 4 because the Chicago home game for Atlanta United is going to be just a teeny bit before the Hawks. So we'll have to go to Star and, someone will have to fill in for me. But those are the breaks this time of year. And look, I love doing Atlanta United. It's my happy place. It's my happiest 2 or 3 hours of the week. So I wouldn't trade that for anything. But was a little bit bummed out that, the schedule worked out in the way where I can't do game 1 and game 4. But hopefully we'll make a nice little run and I'll have more chances going forward.
Yeah. So, and this is, I guess, the perfect time to kind of play into that, because we have a handful of folks that watch or listen to the show after the fact that maybe don't quite listen to the radio, get the radio. They're not as aware of being able to use Odyssey to get you guys on the radio. So we know most of it, I think, but can you just give the quick rundown of kind of your background on broadcasting and then how you kind of got involved with Atlanta United?
Well, that would be a really long story, so I'll try to keep it as quick as I possibly can. I started working at a radio station in Pennsylvania when I was in high school, went to Penn State, continued to work for that radio station. By the time I graduated from Penn State, I think I was like the sports director of that radio station. I was doing play-by-play for a lot of the Olympic sports at Penn State, including soccer. But, women's basketball, lacrosse, things like field hockey, things like that. I was doing high school football and basketball. As soon as I graduated from Penn State, I took a job down in Savannah as the program director of a sports talk station down there. There's not a lot of sports to talk about in Savannah, so it was a lot of high school football and golf coverage, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. I miss Savannah terribly. It was just there over President's Day. Love it down there. Miss the Low Country. And then I got a really good opportunity in 2006 to go work at WWL in New Orleans. I was also the news director of our cluster of radio stations in Savannah. and WWL needed help after Hurricane Katrina. A lot of their staff had to disperse for one reason or the other. And I kind of felt like that was, I don't know, it's going to sound corny, but maybe kind of like my responsibility. Like, I need to go in there and help. This is my way of helping, those people down there deal with the aftermath of Katrina, and had just an unbelievable experience at WWL for 2 years in New Orleans. And along with being the afternoon drive news anchor there, I kind of wiggled my way into some sports opportunity. I got all my jobs in radio because of my news background, but I really wanted to do sports all along. So, I overheard someone down the hall say, "Hey, we have arena football and no one to do it." I'll do it. I'll do it. I mean, I want to be a play-by-play guy. I'll do it. And they let me do the New Orleans Voodoo for a couple years, and did the Saints pre-hap and post, and then had a chance to come here and work in Atlanta. First at WGST Radio. I came here in 2008. And then one day they fired all of us, but luckily for me, 92.9 The Game was starting up down the street the next day. So I've been with 92.9 The Game since the station signed on in October of 2012. I now run the station. I'm the station manager, the brand manager. And along with doing Atlanta United, I'm also the pregame, halftime, postgame host for the Atlanta Hawks. Do a lot of kind of odd job play-by-play assignments here and there. In fact, it was weird. In 2022, I did a Falcons game because West Durham had COVID.
Yep, I remember that.
Did a bunch of Atlanta Dream games on Bally. And then when Bob Rathburn got sick, I filled in for him on some Hawks games on Bally as well. So, and then, obviously when Kevin was out for wrestling, I filled in for him on Bally. So I'm just having a great time doing what I'm doing. I'm doing my dream job. I feel like I have my dream job, and I'm just so grateful, to Darren Eels and Matt Moore and everyone with Atlanta United for giving me the opportunity to do Atlanta United starting in 2018. I don't really know if they kind of had that planned out where 2018 would be as special a season as it was.
It was all in the script.
Yeah, well, lucky me then, I guess. I mean, I cannot say that I'm unlucky, but I've just been enormously fortunate to be on this ride. Love doing what I do. Love interacting with guys like you. Love interacting with people who are commenting. And thank you for all the comments. And, I'm lucky. I'm getting to work my dream job. And you can't beat that.
Well, I was thinking about it last night, like as far as just thinking about the Atlanta sports environment right now. You've got the Hawks, who just made the playoffs for three years straight. Mm-hmm. You've got the Braves winning a championship in the last 2 years, back-to-back championships for the Bulldogs.
Yep.
The Falcons are on their way up. Atlanta United finally seems like they're on the way back up. Is this one of the hottest times in Atlanta sports?
Yeah, if you're willing to count Georgia, and I do count the Dogs as part of the Atlanta sports scene. I'm sorry. I mean, I know that's going to be a debate, and I apologize to Georgia Tech people and Auburn people and Georgia. I'm even wearing my Georgia State shirt. My wife is a master's. She went to grad school at Georgia State, so I have a fond spot even for the Panthers. But come on, I mean, the University of Georgia is a dominant force in the Atlanta sports landscape. So if you include Georgia, which you should, yeah, I mean, this has been absolutely unprecedented. 2 national championships, a World Series with the Braves in the span of just a couple years, the Hawks becoming a frequent playoff team. The Falcons are what they are right now. But even like if you want to throw in Georgia Tech won an ACC championship in men's basketball a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I think Georgia State, they have been very, very formidable in men's basketball, now even in football, the way that they're ascending. I really like what the Atlanta Dream are doing on the South Side. They have the WNBA Rookie of the Year this year. So, like, you throw all the little things in there as well. Yeah, I mean, the Atlanta sports scene right now is boiling hot. And I would, again, submit that Atlanta United got this thing all started in 2018. I truly believe that this is where it started. And, I don't know if necessarily Atlanta United set a standard that everyone else paid attention to, but I do think changing the sports juju, if you will, in this city from a negative to a positive really started to swing with Atlanta United in 2017, really, and then that big step in 2018, winning the championship.
So take us back to 2018, and your final call for MLS Cup has been heard all over YouTube, all over the soccer community. Was that just kind of spontaneous, or is it just something that I don't want to say you planned it, but how that kind of come together? Do you remember like really what you said, or did you have to like go back and watch?
Oh no, I know because it's replayed so much. I remember exactly what I said, and honestly, it like guys, it makes me uncomfortable because that moment was not about me or about what I was saying. I want to make that really clear. It was about the players down below on the pitch. I was just lucky enough to tell everyone what happened. It had nothing to do with me trying to call attention on anything I would say. I just, it was a really special moment that was the result of a lot of hard work by dozens of people, and I was not one of them. I just got to tell people what happened. But I will be honest with you, Sydney. At that time, I was also doing Falcons games, and I think the week before the Cup final, it might have even been before the Red Bulls road leg. I think we kind of knew when Atlanta United won the home leg over the Red Bulls 3-0 that all right, they're going to be in the Cup final. And at some point I talked to Wes Durham, and, he had just done the Super Bowl the year before, and I asked him for advice, and he said, whatever you do, just don't plan anything. Don't rehearse anything. Let it all be spontaneous. And at that point, for whatever reason, I decided to completely ignore his advice and try to really have a plan for what to say. And the only thing, look, I didn't plan out exactly what I was going to say, but the only thing that I kept thinking was, we've had such a long wait in this city since 1995. Such a long wait for that moment where we could finally celebrate a sporting accomplishment that transcended the entire city. And look, let me be very clear. That's no disrespect to the Georgia Swarm, who won a championship a couple years prior. But again, I mean, I think if we're being completely honest, when you look at the level of attention that Atlanta United had in 2018 compared to what had happened with some other teams in town in prior years, it was not comparable. So I just kept thinking, it's been such a long wait. I can't wait for this to be over. And once the wait is over, we can all, kind of just explode. And that's the only thing I kind of planned was I was going to say the wait is over. And it didn't really even come out correctly. I think it just said it is over. And I hear the call a million times now, and I wish I would have done some things a little bit differently. But the one thing I was actually really trying to do in injury time and in the late moments of the match, if you go back and listen, I was trying to tell our listeners, you're never going to forget where you are as you're listening to this, especially if you're listening to it live. So, pull out your phone and take pictures and really think about, really remember and treasure these next couple minutes, because I'm sure the three of you guys will never forget where you were when they blew for full time in that match. And I think that's really more what I was just trying to communicate to our listeners, along with still trying to call the match. It was just, hey, take a moment now to remember this, because this is new for us in Atlanta, and this doesn't happen every day, and it may never happen again. It will happen again, but you never know for sure. And I think it was just trying to convey more of the urgency of, as you listen to my description of what is occurring in front of me, and unfortunately you're unable to be here with me, I'm going to make you feel like you're here with me. And I want you all just to kind of remember where you are at this moment, because you'll never forget it. So hopefully, if we had any listeners that night, they paid attention to that at least.
100%. And I'll give you my quick bit on, you got started doing it in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Back then I was working a job where I was in a car a lot. So you and Jason were the way I visualized some of these games until I could get a chance to go back and watch them. So, I don't want to speak for anybody else. I don't want to speak for, the community necessarily, but I will say, both of you guys, obviously, but you've done an outstanding job, and you continue to do it. I don't get to listen as much as I used to because I'm at the press box now, but do an outstanding job. And there were times, man, where I was in a car, in the middle of the night and trying to late game or whatever, and hearing you guys, and it was refreshing because it is a blessing that we have announcers like you guys in Atlanta. So,
well, that's an unbelievable compliment. Thank you. Again, I'm just telling people what's happening. It's nothing that I'm doing. My job is to just let you know if the ball's in the net and give Jason enough space to describe how it happens. I'm kind of the third guy in that mix, but I do appreciate your compliment.
Absolutely.
Here in Cleveland, the Odyssey app is my friend, so that's how I get to listen to it. Back in the day, you couldn't find you couldn't find other cities.
By the way, we might be seeing you in a couple weeks if the Cavaliers and Hawks we could have another Eastern Conference Finals. So if so, the bell is on me. Okay.
All right.
Or Susie's Soups. We could do Susie's Soups too. Those are very good as well.
There you go.
For sure.
So kind of going back to what you were talking about a minute ago with the kind of impromptu and the advice from Wes and everything about just be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Explain to us how the whole boom Giakoumakis. we got to know.
Well, yeah. So, honestly, I mean, this is going to sound really, really silly, but I think we're all about the same age in this group. Some of you might make me feel a little bit old, so I'm not going to ask for your age. But if you grew up in the mid-'90s with any kind of video game system and you were a sports fan of any kind, you probably played NBA Jam. And, that's where I got it from. But it actually goes even before Boom Giakoumakis. I played that game as a kid. I always wanted to be a play-by-play announcer, I think, since birth. Like, this wasn't something that just kind of came to me one day in my 20s or 30s. Like, oh, that'd be fun. I've always wanted to do it. So I always paid a lot of attention to, announcers on games that I was watching or in video game form, I guess, participating. And I thought the guy who was the voiceover on NBA Jam just was having so much fun. He's on fire as they shoot and there's a comet trail behind the ball.
Yeah.
And, if you had a really good dunk at NBA Jam, the announcer would go, boom, shakalaka. Yep. Oh, yeah, that's really funny. Maybe 35 years from now, I'll be calling soccer matches, and I can say that. No. So let's go back now. I told you that when I was in high school, I got a job at a radio station in the middle of Pennsylvania. And as I was going to college at Penn State, I did a lot of high school basketball play-by-play on the radio. And there was a game and someone dunked, and dunking is, at least at that time, was very, very rare, for a high school game. And I remember just kind of blurting out, boom, shakalaka. And I got a lot of like people really liked that, and that really resonated with people. I think that might have been the only high school dunk I ever called. So I always, just to be honest, among the four of us, I love doing Atlanta United. I think my ultimate goal, honestly, is to be a play-by-play announcer somewhere in the NBA. And I always kind of promised myself that if I got that opportunity, I would incorporate Boom Shakalaka into my NBA call because, again, I just loved NBA Jam. Well, here I am now in MLS, and as soon as Giakoumakis got signed, it clicked with me like, oh boy, that's the same number of syllables and the same amount of K sounds. I think I can just twist this just enough, and maybe I can pull it off. And so that was one I kind of did think about when they signed Giakoumakis. And, I guess I saw on Reddit that some people may not like it very much. So, I'm going to keep going with it, I think, but I always do. No, I always listen to my customers, and, if people think it's corny, maybe I'll move on to something else. But if it's something that's giving people happiness, then I'm cool with it too.
Yeah, that's great.
You got to have fun. Like, right? Like you have to have like fun with what you're doing. And like,
well, look, here's the thing. Let's be totally honest. Okay. I do games on the radio. Anyone who's watching an Atlanta United match has an option. And the easy option is to listen to the television commentary. So I've got to do something different in order to encourage people to choose Jason and I over the TV commentary. And quite frankly, I think the way to do it is to have fun with it. Look, when I studied...
It sounds like the motto of our show.
Yeah. When I studied soccer play-by-play, and this goes way, way back before I was doing Atlanta United. Like I said, I was doing soccer in college. You know, the announcers that I gravitated towards in my study of the game were the Spanish language announcers. And I had no idea what they were saying, but I could feel their passion in the way that they were communicating. And that, to me, as a viewer, really drew me in. And I kept thinking, I am feeling what those men and women are feeling as they describe the match. And that is, I think, a very important job of a play-by-play announcer for the viewer or listener to feel the same thing that I'm feeling as I'm trying to describe to you what's happening. So I know I have to be a little bit different. Otherwise, you're just going to choose the television call. I'm not trying to self-promote or anything, or call attention to myself. I'm just trying to be different and have some fun with it while still respecting the game.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people don't like it that I say score as opposed to goal. I'm just trying to be different. And I do have a little bit of a ice hockey background too, so maybe that creeps into it slightly. But I'm just trying to be different. I was always taught use verbs. You know, score is a verb, goal is not. So it kind of started with that, and again, I'm just trying to be a little bit different. I feel like as long as you know the ball's in the net, I've done my job.
Right.
But, you know, in terms of just having fun with it, I like I said, the 2 or 3 hours a week that I get to spend on Atlanta United calling matches, that's my happy place. That's the most fun I have in anything I do professionally. I hope that listeners can feel that through their speakers. It's not a forced thing. It's a real thing. Even in a 6-1 loss in Columbus, I'm still having fun, still having the time of my life. And I'm calling every match like it's my last because I don't know when I won't have the opportunity to do it anymore. So I truly am having fun doing it, but I want the viewer or the listener to experience that in hopes that, well, maybe they want to have fun too. And that they'll choose Jason and I over an alternative.
I'm happy that you get to yell in the press box or in the box. Yeah, I can't. And I'm telling you, like when I was watching games at the house or in the car, if I was in the car, it was a scream fest, you know. But it just all that energy comes out, and I think that's what people like about your goal calls. You know, the score. Like I think score is awesome because it is different. I think that's exactly why it's cool. You know, because you can only say goal so many times in so many languages. Yeah. The Spanish language announcers, like you're talking about, you know, they add that extra emphasis to it and the length and everything else, and it makes it exciting. And that's what you have in the English language.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think the four of us, with what we do professionally, we try to benchmark little things that other people do that we like, and we try to combine it into like our own style. You know, like for Sydney, for example, who I think is a terrific writer. Right? Sydney, I'm sure you probably have studied a lot of different sports writers and columnists, and you probably take little bits and pieces of a couple different people and you incorporate it into your own thing. So yeah, maybe I try to describe myself like maybe I'm trying to be 1/3 of Andres Cantor, 1/3 of Mike Emmerich, who I think is really the gold standard for a play-by-play announcer in any sport, longtime National Hockey League commentator. And I'm trying to be 1/3 Jim Ross, to be honest with you. Seriously, because those are three people that I really admire. Emmerich's ability to describe movements of the game, Cantor's ability to accurately describe something while still conveying how he feels about it, and Jim Ross for the entertainment value. If I can combine those three, I think, you know, that's going to be a fun listen. Or you're absolutely going to hate it, and there's nothing I can really do about that. But hopefully, for the majority of the audience, it's a fun listen.
I'll say this. I'll say this real quick. I know Tommy Sears perked up when you said JR's name and Mike Emmerich's name with him being a wrestling and hockey fan.
Right.
So.
No, but I love them. And I study their craft. I study them constantly because look, now I'm going to go to, my alma mater, Penn State. And I wasn't the hugest fan of Joe Paterno, but he did say something that was very, very true. You either get better, you get worse. You never stay the same. And I'm always trying to get better. I listen back to every single match I call, trying to identify things that maybe I'm using as a crutch phrase or things that I'm overly reliant on, or maybe I'm not giving Jason enough room to describe something, or I'm stepping on him, or maybe Jason's making a point that didn't really resonate with me initially that I need to go back and kind of restudy. I think that's just part of doing your job correctly and putting the right amount of time into the craft. So, it's something I spend a lot of time on, but again, it's because I love doing it so much and I have so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the craft and kind of moving forward with Atlanta United in the sense that, it's early in the season. Now that Atlanta started off the season, I think we can still call it almost as good as 2018. There's a lot of optimism. The Brad Guzan issue aside, it is what injuries happen. It is what it is. We could beat the dead horse. But from what you've seen so far this season, and with a window coming up, let me put it this way. If you were Garth Lagerwey and Carlos Bocanegra, if there was anything that you were going to change, if anything at all, what would it be? What would you look to in the window?
Ooh.
I know it's a trick. It's a tricky, tough question because things are so good right now.
I'm going through that. I would still be looking at my striker depth. I think you're in really good shape with Giakoumakis, and you'd better pray he doesn't get hurt. And look, Barry, that's not a slight on Barry. I really do appreciate Barry's work rate. He just plays in a different way than Giakoumakis. Barry seems to drift more towards wide positions, which makes it maybe a little bit more difficult for him to get consistent service. And then behind Barry, you've got nothing. I mean, Eric Lopez went to Columbus as the backup striker, but you put Jackson out on loan, which I think was good for him. I mean, Jackson is only going to improve if he plays, and he'll have an opportunity to play in Phoenix. So, again, given the caveat and everything is, what's your wage bill looking like right now? Can you do it in such a way where you can make it fit? I would like to see a little bit of an improvement in the depth you have at center forward right now. But this is still a much, much different situation than in 2020, where, I mean, my goodness, you were going with Adam John and J.J. Williams as the backup. I mean, I know I heard you guys talking about Brad. I mean, this is not comparable to last year with Brad's injury right now, because you have two proven competent backups. You thought you had a proven competent backup last year in Bobby Shuttleworth, and it turns out he was not very good. And then he left the team, he essentially quit to go coach. It's not going to happen this year. You also have the cover of Miles Robinson still at center back in front of whether it's Quentin Westberg or Clément Diop. So it's a much, much different situation this year. And I honestly, I think Garth and Carlos deserve a ton of credit. We were sitting around in January thinking, you're going to have enough guys to fill out a team sheet right now. And not only do they have enough guys, but at pretty much everything other than center forward, I think they're running a very strong, 2 or 3 deep at every position. I think the one player that is the indispensable piece is obviously Almada. Yeah. And I think that's going to be so interesting to see if Atlanta United gets an offer that gets them out of bed this summer. And then what is that number that would get them out of bed? Is it 25 million? Is it higher? I wouldn't be getting out of bed for anything under 30, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's how the club feels. That's my number. 30 would be the number. And then if you do that, where are you on the table and what are you doing going forward to still get something out of this season? Can you even swing a situation where you get a loan back and maybe you keep him through Leagues Cup and you get in the CC? I don't know. Because I also think that Almada is a player that's got to go to a Champions League club. I mean, no disrespect to Almiron, but Almada's not, a 2019 Newcastle player. To me, he's someone who belongs in a Champions League club right now. And that, I think, will be very dynamic as the summer evolves. So I've given you a very rambling answer. I tend to do that. If you listen
to the
good podcast, I apologize. But, it's like I said on the radio a couple weeks ago, as long as you have Almada, you are going to have a chance to win every game this year in which he plays, because you're always going to have the best player in the game as long as you have Almada. And I strongly feel that as long as Atlanta United keeps Almada and that he stays healthy, they're going to have a chance to win every match in which he plays this year.
Yeah, I mean, well, you mentioned a Champions League team, and to be fair, Newcastle, they might be in the Champions League in 2020.
Yeah.
2024.
I want to be clear. Like, I'm not talking about the state of Newcastle.
No.
There, I'm Newcastle now, absolutely very viable. I mean,
right.
I see Kevin, absolutely. I mean, that actually would be a heck of a fit.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a clumsy analogy. Right now, Almada's not a Brentford player, right?
Right.
He's not going to Nottingham Forest. I mean, Almada should be a Champions League player as far as I'm concerned.
No, I agree. And I'm just kind of half joking about Newcastle, but no, I totally agree. The stature of club that are looking at him right now, huge names that are looking at him. I totally agree that that would be a great fit for him. It really would raise the profile of Atlanta United.
Absolutely. And the league.
And the league.
I mean, it would be in many ways the same way that Alphonso Davies really transformed the league maybe 5 years ago. I mean, this would make Alphonso Davies look like a sale for pennies on the dollar. It would be massively transformative for the league.
I want to talk about another young player, and it's funny because Michael in the comments just mentioned him. I'm Caleb Wiley, of course, being called into the U.S. men's national team camp for the Continental Classico, I think it's called, against Mexico out west in a few weeks. Michael saying in the chat, my wife is not a Caleb Wiley fan for a while. He has redeemed himself in her eyes of late. Laughing emoji, of course. Congrats on the U.S. men's national team for him. Yeah, but no, great to see Caleb. Yeah, he's proven himself as a really strong young player for Atlanta United. Of course, coming through the academy, homegrown signing, and now here he is, starting quality player for Atlanta United. Just tremendous trajectory for him, and another player to really keep an eye on.
Well, and I think Michael's wife's perception is interesting because, quite frankly, I felt like Caleb was thrown in a little bit before he was ready last year, and to score against SKC in the opening match of the season, I think threw the expectations for Caleb way, way out of whack. And I thought at times he struggled to meet maybe that collective expectation. And we're forgetting the fact that he was 17 years old and that he's thrown into a team that sadly at that point wasn't very good. And he had to do a lot with maybe not being fully ready for it yet. I think Caleb is certainly the most improved player on this team right now. And I haven't had really a chance to talk to Caleb about this. He's a quiet guy, as you guys know. I think he's a little bit shy, as one would expect being 18 years old. But I really want to know what Caleb did over the last 6 months to change his body. To me, it looks like he got a lot thicker. In a good way. He got yoked in honestly kind of a similar way that Jackson Conway did.
Not to say they went to the gym together apparently.
Maybe, yeah, and coincidentally, I think Jackson really got yoked between age 18 and 19, and here's Caleb now between 17 and 18, and his body has really kind of changed. So Caleb obviously has put in a ton of hard work, whether it be at the training ground or in the gym or wherever, and the hard work's paying off. I'm really, really proud of him. And I think just the experience, look, it's a single match call-up, mainly with MLS players, but I think just the opportunity to get a senior call up and be with those guys for a couple days, even just for a couple days, I think that will do a ton for his confidence. And again, it's short. It's only one match, only a couple days, but I do think he'll come back to Atlanta United an even better player.
When we were doing, we do spaces after every single game while you're doing the post-game show. And last year was rough. And I know for you, I listened to your show the next morning on my podcatcher and hear some of the questions that you take. We take a lot of those live as well. We actually hear them.
Okay.
And, we kept pushing that, a McFadden and a Wiley, these players are getting thrown in the fire. But this experience going into the next season is going to show. And with Wiley, that's the perfect example. Like, he should not have as much experience as he does today. But because of all those injuries, he's a better player now.
Yeah, spot on. And I think McFadden's another example. I mean, look, that we're going up to Toronto this week, and I mean, that poor guy had to suit up and start in a match against Toronto on 10 minutes notice because Brooks Lennon slipped on a floor mat on the touchline.
Rubber piece of rubber.
Right. Like you're talking about just freak accidents here and there that are throwing guys into positions that they did their best, but truly we're not ready to assume or we're prepared to assume. And those types of experiences will make an Aiden McFadden a better player. They have made Caleb Wiley certainly a better player. And I think even for some of the guys who didn't make it, who didn't stick around, like even a Rocco Rios Novo, Raul Godinho, probably became better players as a result of what they had to go through. Cisneros is a really good example. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little surprised that it didn't work out where they could keep him. We talk about how you could maybe improve your depth at center forward. That's someone I'd still like to have in the team, to be quite honest with you. But another really good example. So one of the blessings of this season so far is you've been able to stay relatively healthy. You haven't necessarily needed to lean on those types of players yet. But look, there's going to be a match this year, guys, where a Johnny Fortune is going to have to save Atlanta United, or Machop Scholl is going to have to save Atlanta United, or Noah Cobb is going to have to save Atlanta United. And you better hope that they're ready for it. And that's where I think Next Pro becomes incredibly vital this year for those players to get minutes. And I think it's why you've seen in at least one case this year, players who will get a few minutes in an MLS match on Saturday will turn right around and play on Sunday. I think that becomes very, very critical this year, because you're not going to get better by not playing.
Exactly. We're actually going to bring that point up in just a little bit, talking about the twos, but that happened with Machop this weekend. I believe he played against NYCFC and then went the next day and played. I think he came on as a sub at the half. And for what it's worth, real quick on Chop, I think he is also one that has progressed immensely. Like, his confidence on the ball in the time that we've seen him this season has been so much better than in previous years. But yeah, I agree. MLS Next Pro is, whether we look at the stats and the losses and all that, like, that's not really what it's about. What it's about is preparing these guys for this first team. And I think the twos as a whole, coming from USL last year, but the twos as a whole, they're doing that job.
I agree. And I do think the results will improve as they continue to go through Next Pro, because a lot of other teams have the same goal right now, where they're trying to mold players into a first team system, make them first team ready, not necessarily try to find a way to out tactic Pittsburgh Riverhounds, or tactically outwit, Louisville or something like that. So I do think those results are going to come for the twos.
Yeah. Agree.
So, want to be respectful to your time. We appreciate you coming on. I got one final question for you.
Sure.
This is not Atlanta United related, but as a fellow grill aficionado, I need to know what your favorite, because it's almost that season, by the way.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to grill, regardless of price or whatever else?
No, great question. Right now, my thing is tri-tip. And let me tell you why. Because I love beef. I love that it can be done relatively quickly. But if you do it Santa Maria style like I do, you still can take enough time to smoke it and the way you season it becomes vital. You know, if you're just going to put like a really nice steak on the grill, it's going to be quick. Even if you reverse sear, it's going to be relatively quick, and you're just seasoning it with salt and pepper. You don't want to over season a steak. With tri-tip, I think the fun with that is you can get really, really creative with the way you season it. You can almost season it like you would season like pulled pork. And if you do it Santa Maria style, you know, I use a seasoning that has some coffee grounds and some cayenne pepper. It's kind of like a acidic, spicy type of rub. But then I smoke it on mesquite, and it doesn't take very long because you're only trying to get it basically to medium rare. It only takes about 40 minutes. Then you just do a quick sear and you're done. So I feel like I'm able to express myself with all the flavors and the smoke and everything like that, and get creative, but not have to spend all day on it. Because unfortunately right now, you know, until hawk season ends, I'm not going to be able to do all day grilling. So this is my express version right now, but tri-tip. And it's usually a very inexpensive cut. You know, you can do it with pretty much any beef side. So that at the moment, that's my number one. But get back to me in like 2 or 3 months, and I might be on pork steaks. Pork steaks are another one of my favorite, but they really take all day because you're constantly basting them and everything like that.
Have you ever done a crown roast?
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Wanted to do it for Easter, but forgot to order it in time. Crown roast for Christmas is something my Noni used to do a lot. That's a really fun one too. Standing rib roast, again, that's a Christmas Easter type deal for me. I'll inject garlic cloves into it. That can be a lot of fun, especially, you know, if you do a compound butter. And oh boy, I'm making myself hungry.
I know, I'm not with you. I need this recipe though. I want the recipe because I'm going to try it. So.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Next Sunday, tap me on the shoulder in the press box, and I'll go through it with you. But it's so easy. I mean, you basically you get the tri-tip, you rub it, you let it sit for a couple hours, and then I'll take you through the grilling procedure. But it's a lot of fun.
Sweet.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds delicious too.
You know. Well, I'm biased, but I think
that's okay. Always be biased towards your own grilling. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Hey, we absolutely appreciate it. We appreciate you coming on, taking the time. It's been a pleasure as always. You're more than welcome anytime to come back. It's an open invite.
I appreciate it. And guys, thank you for your coverage of Atlanta United. I just want to say for a moment that, you know, supporters of this team are very, very lucky that they have the three of you, and they have Joe and Sam and Felipe and Doug, and even I think to a lesser extent the buy-in of the television stations in town. The way that this club is covered is not common around MLS, and it's a credit to you guys and your hard work. And thank you so much for, you know, creating and maintaining that level of coverage and covering the team, I think, in a very fair and just a very fair and objective way. I think you guys do a great job, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Yeah,
Thank you so
really
much.
appreciate it, Mike.
Appreciate it.
Much. And I'm sure a lot of fans echo that in regards to 929, just the depth of coverage they give Atlanta United. You know, Jason's show. On the afternoon, morning, you guys are talking about soccer. You don't get that in many major markets, if at all. So,
Sydney, and I know you guys are trying to get rid of me, but I'll just say this really quickly. As
Not
the
at all.
Manager, we wouldn't be doing that if our audience didn't demand it.
Yeah.
And I keep telling my my counterparts across the country, I can show you the numbers that prove that we have an audience that demands it. If sports radio stations around the country treated Major League Soccer and their local club as the major league sport that it truly is,
right,
it will only help to grow it. What we had to do at 92.9 was make the conscious decision that we are going to treat Atlanta United on the same level as the Falcons and the Hawks and the Braves. And our audience believed in that, and now our audience consumes it. So I appreciate your compliment, Sydney, but quite frankly, it's a smart business decision by us. Our audience demands it, and that's why we provide that level of coverage.
Excellent. And I hope other markets, take notice and really do that.
It's coming. Boston's doing it, which I'm glad to see. Columbus is doing it. Houston has been doing it. So I think it's coming, but we need more of it, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, I'll let you get rid of me now.
You're good. Thanks,
man. Really appreciate you.
All right, take care, guys.